Hello, everybody. Here we are. I think this is number 182. 182 of these Q and A's. Oh, what's this? Whew. I was out weeding in the garden because we've had 4 days, I think, 4 days of rain. So the weeds come up nice and easy. So I think I got some like dirt on my face. Anyway. All right. So got a little bit of news for you. The Trumpet Chop's master book is now finally, months later, is now finally on Amazon if you need Amazon. Now, I want to tell people that when you buy on Amazon, we don't get much money from that. If you want a physical book, it's better to go on lulu.com and buy from there. We get more money from that. That said, the reason I don't outright recommend that is because they don't have free shipping. And so a lot of people prefer the free shipping. Typically per book that we sell on Amazon, we make about $2. So it's not really a, a profitable venture. Unless people, like thousands of people buy the books, then we will have a little bit more money. Now that is actually a lot closer to what other people make, so that's pros and cons of publishing. If you self-publish, you make more of the money. If you get a publisher, you make less money per book, but they're able to reach more people. So that's the pros and cons. Anyway, hello, Tim. Tim says, howdy from Oklahoma City in honor of Texas State Fair Boomer Sooner. Tim says, I bought the download and printed it. Which download is that? I saw something came in. Yeah, so I'm not sure which one it is. My memory is. But anyway, thanks. Let me know which one it was that you bought. We have literally dozens of books. Literally dozens of books. And some people say, well, some of those are ebooks. Well, that's true. Some of them are just ebooks. But even with the physical books, we are still over 2 dozen. Even with physical books, we are over 2 dozen books. So, yeah. I remember when the internet was brand new and there were people bragging about how much they had published compositions, books and stuff like that. And already by that time, I had already published a lot more than what the guys were bragging about. So the difference is that I don't brag like that. I know it sounds like I just brag now, but anyway. Do we have any questions to get started with? Let me see if anything came in. I didn't see anything earlier. Let me see. I'll put this on the other screen. No, not that I can tell. So here's how this works. If I don't have any questions, I just blab my mouth off. Huh? How's that? If you guys want me to stop blabbing my mouth, you can ask a question. Okay. All right. One place I can also check is see if any questions came in on YouTube. I don't always do that. Yeah, nothing on the email either. So we're gonna look at the comments. No, no questions there. Maybe we'll end up having a short session today. Um, yeah. So there was other news too that I was going to tell you guys about. Oh, yes. You know what? We're starting back up publishing a piece every week. And I wanted to tell you guys that if you go to Tiger Music to buy the piece, the first 7 days while it's being published, we have the price listed 35% lower. So something, so let me pull that up and there's a, we're putting out another duet. So this was always the plan all along. We published the duet books first this time. Last time it was the other way around. We published the duet books first. That's why we went a long time without publishing any music, because I was putting all my effort into getting the books done. Then we're going to publish the individual duets separately. That way, people who don't want the whole book don't have to buy the whole book. So, for example, this coming Monday, the Kempis Carol is the duet for Kempis Carol is going to be on sale for 7 days. You don't even need a code for it. It's just going to be on sale. The price is going to be lower. Okay. Then now, what my hope is that people will say, "Hey, this is a great duet," and say, "Well, maybe I should get the book." So, that's why we're doing it the opposite way around. You guys have heard me say that the hardest part for me as a publisher is the advertising stuff, because there's so much of that happens in modern advertising that is, I consider, to be not Christian. So much of it. Now, there's a lot of Christians that do it anyway, and in their hearts and their minds, they do think it's Christian. Um, but I don't. Just to give you an example, those guys that say, "Oh, you only have 10 minutes to um, take this offer." Well, that's not Christian. That's a very manipulative tactic. Um, so, and you could say that the having it on sale for 35% off for the first 7 days falls in that category. It's 7 days. That's not, if someone doesn't want it, they don't, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm not manipulating anybody by doing that. I just want people to have an opportunity to check the stuff out when it first comes out. It's to our advantage for more people to buy the stuff earlier, so that when someone does like it, they can say, "Hey, look at this, is a great duet," or whatever piece that we're talking about. And that's to our advantage. So to me, that's not a manipulative strategy. What it is that what we're exchanging, we're bringing the price a little bit down at the beginning so people can get introduced to the piece. Um, I was about to answer Sean, and then it got deleted. I'm assuming that you're about to put an updated one. Anyway, hello, Sean. Nice to see you. Anyway, so what I'm putting out on Monday is the single duet version of Kempis Carol. Kempis Carol is it's listed as German, but the piece is in Latin. It's a traditional German Christmas carol, but the title is in Latin. So In fact, I did my research on it. Apparently, in old days, Campus Carol is German for Christmas Carol. So you can read about that online. So yes, that's coming out on Monday midday sometime, and it will be available. Excuse me. It will be available at our store, Tiger Music. Obviously, if you buy it at Tiger Music, we get more money, even with the discount. That's the thing. Um, then we have it at PayHip, which is the next highest paying one, and then Sheet Music Plus, Sheet Music Direct, and JW Pepper. All you'll be able to get our stuff at all of those places. And I'm only talking about this right now because we don't have a question. You know what I would like to talk about? I want to make sure because we just sold a bunch of tonalization studies. There, hello, Cardo. Cardo says, "Hi, Eddie. How are you doing? I'm good, thank you. This week I haven't had the discipline of keeping the 3 levels of rest. Today I paid off for it. No endurance and an airy sound. Should I take a day off tomorrow?" I don't think that's necessary. I think what you can do is just get back to what you were doing. Those times when you have that are not bad. Those times are not bad. Um, you all it does. So I like to look at life having these ups and downs, right? These normal ups and downs. Sometimes the ups are more up, sometimes the downs are more down. We have to have that. We have to have those ups and downs. Otherwise, how do we handle like regular everyday life? So there has to be times because think about it. How else are you going to get prepared for when you've got too many gigs, too many performances, too many rehearsals? And, how do you prepare for that without actually having those ups and downs? So, yes, there are times when we will push too hard. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I hope that makes sense. I think a lot of people try to take what I wrote in the One Range book and the introduction to the Chops Express and stuff like that. They're trying to take it and instead of taking it conceptually or maybe we'll say philosophically, instead of trying to go take that information and use it, they're trying to follow them as rules. Um, and that's not really how it works. I never intended it to be followed strictly like that. And I've actually had some students that will, they think they're calling me out because told them something that in their mind contradicts the book. But the book is meant to give you a foundation of thoughts, of logic and reasoning. Wow, there's somebody walking in our breezeway with their little kid. Anyway, so yes, it's supposed to be conceptual. You take the theories of this and you make your life work with those theories. So, like, yeah, I've had students that when I told them, uh, because there are times when I'll say, go ahead and take the day off. There are times when I'll say that, um, but it's contextual, and and they'll get angry with me. Or there are times when I'll tell them, no, keep practicing what you're doing. Uh, and once again, they'll get angry with me because I'm saying something opposite of what they think it's opposite. But if you look at the overall picture, it's not. If it was concrete, let's use that word. If the method was concrete, nobody would ever advance. There would be no advancing with that method. If it was a concrete method, nobody would advance because there would never be a time when you played enough to get tired enough to build the strength enough to move to that next level. It just would never happen. And by the way, I have had a student, I'm thinking of somebody right now, who that's why he got stuck because he was thinking of it as a concrete method instead of a, let's say, abstract method, a philosophical method, a logical method. He was thinking in terms of concrete, so he would never go to the next level because on that next level, um, he would he would get too tired. He would, you know what I mean? Anyway, so yes, it has to be flexible like that. Now, if now that I've said this, you think, yes, I should have a day off tomorrow, then take the day off tomorrow. If you think that, you know what that depends on is how bad is it. To me, no endurance and an airy sound, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. All you have to do, in my opinion, all you do is go back to the level, the 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 days that the day rotations like you were doing. Hello, Seppo. Seppo has joined us from Finland. Sean says, so after reading Miles Davis's autobiography, he, along with other trumpeters, listened to live music and recordings and then transcribed what they liked. Is that the way to learn jazz language? That's the primary way that we learn jazz language. You write down what you like. Now, I have a method that we use that when you get that material, you uh, like use it um, to develop because otherwise it takes a long time when you do that transcription. Here's the problem I have with the traditional way of doing this is that you have a tendency, and I'm not going to say who this is, but I remember going to a concert in Arizona when I went to go visit my family, and they were having a, a jazz festival at the university. My parents at the time were living, I want to say 30 minutes away from the University of Arizona. I might be wrong about that, but it seemed like 30 minutes. And so they had a jazz festival, and I went. And the featured trumpet player, this is how it sounded to me. The featured trumpet player sounded like he was doing a Clifford Brown lick here, a Freddie Hubbard lick here, a Fats Navarro lick here, Miles Davis lick there, Woody Shaw lick here. And you know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like if you were to make a a a spoken language equivalent, it sounds like someone took different people's sentences, memorized them, and spoke them in a conversation. I'm not a big fan of that kind of learning. Now, I'm not saying that that it always produces that kind of result. I'm not saying that. Um, but I found a different way that helps you get to where you're using that language in a way that makes it yours. That's the most important thing, that you don't sound like somebody else. That you don't sound, there's There are players that now the whole reason why people like them is because they sound just like some other player. That's not really. I don't want to be one of those guys that says that's not jazz. But when you look at what makes jazz different from other styles, one of those things is that it's unique to the artist. The whole point of jazz is to quote unquote jazz something up. The whole point is to take what was already there and do your own thing. So if you're just playing memorized licks one after another, that to me, and trying to sound just like the guy you took it from, to me, that's very shallow. It's not personable. It's not you. So, so yes, I do have, but the first step, we do want to do um, transcriptions. We do want to do that. Hello, Jeffrey, and hello, Karen. Nice to see you guys here. Seppo says, practicing the skills is the main thing at mastering any instrument. That's true. Which order do you prefer in practicing the keys? I have well, then you correct yourself. You say, I mean scales, not keys. Actually, I like to think of it as keys, not scales. I prefer this, to me, though, and I've been saying this for over 20 years. Scales are just a skeleton of the key. I'm going to say it one more time. Scales are just a skeleton of the key. The difference between my tonalization studies and scales, one of the most important differences is that we do only one key per day. Never two keys in one day. And yes, that's how I like to say it. Because technically we're not playing scales when we play the tonalization studies. When we're playing tonalization studies, we're playing scale patterns. Okay? Hello, Raimo, nice to see you. So we do all those patterns in one key first before we move on to the other key. That's the proper way. Hello, Free. So now, which order should you learn them in? I have a video about that. I like to go zigzag across, so like the circle of fifths. So if we have C at the top, we go F, G. Then instead of going over to B flat, I want to keep the students in the sharps for a while. So we're going to go C, F, G, down to D, then over to B flat. Then we're going to stay in the flats for a while. We're going to go to E flat, and then over to A, then A down to E. You see how we're doing two flats, two sharps. The exception to that is the very first one. So C, F, G, then D. Then we do two of each at that point. So yes, that's and if you don't remember that, then there is a video that you can go to that has that order. I prefer that order. Now, I would also like to say it's very important before you do the tonalization studies, it's very important to do the expansion studies. Now, this, I say very important, I'm talking about the students. Professional level players will already have the skills under their fingers before they do the tonalization studies. So I'm not suggesting that they have to do the expansion. So the expansion studies are for people that don't already know those skills. Okay. So yes, to me, it's about practicing in the key, not practicing the skill. The skill is almost worthless. It's it's when you put all of those skill patterns together in one practice session, that's where the benefit comes from, because now at the end of that session, you are that much closer to thinking in that key. When we do all the keys, traditionally, the keys, the skills were always done, all of the skills in one session. In fact, I had a teacher one time that told me that I needed to do my skills this way. Up, up one, chromatically down the other, chromatically up to the next one. Um, and when you practice that way, you get a lot of finger technique, but you don't get anything here. Um, if you do all 20, and the truth is there's more than 20. I have only ever published so far the first 20. There are in my system that I do here at home, there are 3 sets of 20. So that's 60 major skill tonalization studies. I do the first 20 one day, the second 20 the next day, the third 20 the next day. So I'm doing 3 practice sessions, 3 days of practice sessions of one key at a time. Each one having different exercises, different patterns. So 60 total patterns. In the last set, I start introducing chromatic notes. So like, for example, one of the exercises in that last 20. Where you have a chromatic leading tone into it. Now, I got that from a Clifford Brown solo, and it makes a very nice pattern that you can practice over all the skills. I mean, over all the keys. Seppo says, Raimo, are you from Finland? If you are, I would like to meet you. So, yeah, be great for you guys to hook up. Jeffrey's greeting everybody. That's nice. All right. Any other questions? So, you know what? Let me go back to what Seppo was asking, because Seppo asked what order do you practice it? The order that I gave you is for the beginners, for the people who haven't already learned all these before. So when I'm doing it, I'm going up in half steps. So I start with C, then I go to D flat, then I go to D, then I go to E flat. And when you switch from one to the other, has to do with how proficient you are on all those different keys. If you are not proficient, going from C to D flat is going to be a struggle. And we don't want that. We don't want that. So when you're ready, you can just progress in half steps. I don't like going in the circle of fists because you can get stuck. You know, if you're doing, see, when we do half steps, we're doing, so C, then 5 flats, then 2 sharps, then 3 flats, then 4 sharps, then 1 flat. Then I try to switch between 6 flats and 6 sharps each time. Then we do 1 sharp, 4 flats. You see how it goes back and forth between the sharps and the flats. That's why I go in half steps. I don't, if we go through the cycle of fifths, then you're not getting that, well, the word I'm looking for, disruption. So we can get like into a rut on the keys. We don't want to get into any rut. Now, we want that rut when the students are first learning. We want them to have that rut because to them that rut is beneficial. You have to learn those keys first before you start disrupting yourself from that. I hope that makes sense. Sean says, love your newest free improv. Well, thank you. You know what I did is I decided for the next 12 free improvs, I'm just going to stick to one key at a time. It's sort of like a tonalization free improv. So I started with C. There's one chromatic note in there. And since I didn't want it to sound like I was just playing in the key of C, I tried to stress the Phrygian sound. So it's more like E Phrygian, but E Phrygian is the same key signature as C. So that's what I was trying to do with that. Normally, I don't put that much thought into the Q and A. I mean, not the Q and A, the free improv. Normally, I don't do that. Seppo says, I have tried to implement the tonalization studies for my students. I have not had any method before besides the music reading Vandercook Etudes method to my class in this week. I feel totally sure that your tonalization method really works. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. So the tonalization studies, I put that in the category of things that I've seen so much, almost to the point of being miraculous. I've seen so many great results from the tonalization studies. I've seen so many wonderful results that I almost can't take credit for it. In fact, I remember when I first came up with those scales, it was, I think, 1984 when I first put those scales together, 84, 85. And I remember what my objective was. However, it's so much more beneficial than what I originally expected. And so in that sense, I do not take credit for being so clever that I came up with something that was that good. I do believe that it was partly divine. I believe that God pushed me in the right direction to come up with the right exercises. So yes. Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys are using it. Any other questions? Yeah. So you know what I do with my beginners on the tonalization studies is that they have to do 10 repetitions. So we have them first do the expansion study and they have to do 10 repetitions of each of those. So like if we're doing the C one, we're doing that 10 times. And then we're doing that 10 times. Doing that 10 times. And they're going to do that all the way up until they get to when they get that far, then they stop doing that. It's important to remember that the expansion studies are only an introductory exercise to get you ready for the tonalization studies. You do the introductory exercises, then you never have to do them again. You go straight to the patterns after that. So there's 10 of those. Some of my students, it takes them 2 or 3 practice sessions. It depends on how much they practice. Some of them can get through the whole thing in one practice session. Then, from that point forward, they put the expansion studies away, never go back to them, unless the exception to that is unless they really like it. If they really like the expansion studies, then I tell them, don't consider that progressive practice. But if you have an exercise like that you really, really like, there's no reason why you can't go back to it, right? You know, it's just not part of the program. But I don't have a problem with people playing stuff that they enjoy playing. And there are some students that I have that like it so much they use that as their warm-up, which that makes sense because it would make a great warm-up. But it's not part of the method, which doesn't, which actually means very little, right? So anyway, then they cannot learn a new key until they've done 10 repetitions of all of the exercises. Now, at this point, before we're doing 10 repetitions of one exercise, on the expansion, 10 repetitions on the first exercise, then we go on to the second exercise, 10 repetitions there. But when you finish that, you go to the tonalization studies and you don't play it like that. You go play number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're a beginner, you're only doing those first 4 exercises. You do them today, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you put it away. You come back tomorrow, 1, 2, 3, 4. Put it away, come back tomorrow, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to do that 10 times. It's going to take at least 10 days to get through that. And if you're doing the resting thing, where you take at least 1 day a week, that's 2 weeks of practice. 2 weeks of practice on one key. And that's a minimum, by the way. If they're still making a lot of mistakes, they shouldn't be making any mistakes. If they make mistakes, fingering mistakes, if they make mistakes at that stage, something went wrong. Most likely what went wrong is that they practiced too fast. We don't want to practice too fast because that's when the mistakes come in. And another thing that I tell people about the tonalization studies is that they are done out of tempo. You don't play them in tempo. You don't put the metronome on. Do not put the metronome on when you're practicing the tonalization studies. It's not supposed to be in tempo. When you get to the parts that you know you've been missing fingerings, you slow down. You can't do that when you're doing the metronome. So let's say we're doing 4 sharps and you keep missing the D sharp. You go slow at the D sharp so that you don't make that mistake. Okay, so normally if they've gotten through it 10 times and they're still making mistakes, they didn't do that. The other thing that we say about the tonalization studies is that if you do make a mistake, don't go back to the beginning, but don't also start where you were. Go back 1 cell from the cell that the mistake was in. So let's say I accidentally played D natural. Now, instead of going back to the beginning or changing to D natural, I'm going to go back. That's how we approach having mistakes, is we because of the finger pattern. That mistake was not because you couldn't play D sharp. Anyone can play D sharp. Is because in that sequence of notes, that finger pattern is not there. So you back up just a little bit, and then you go back through it again. Anyway, let me read some of these. So Seppo says, I have tried the harmonica this week. I would like to learn the bend draw, but I'm constantly struggling. Is there perhaps something I have already learned in trumpet playing which may disturb my harmonica playing? I have no clue. I don't know. I have a friend who's a very accomplished harmonica player. Maybe I think I'm going to see him tomorrow night. So I will keep that in mind and ask him what he says. Seppo says also, there will be a gig when I will need this skill. Tintin City, and I would like to be the performer of the 10-second solo at the harmonica. Hey, that's cool. Yeah, there's a trumpet player friend of mine who's a great harmonica player. Let me see if I can find a link that uh, and in fact I could probably pass on his information to you privately. It could probably help you with that. Um, oh, I just assumed he would be on YouTube. I'm not seeing anything. Wow. I just assumed he would be all over the internet. Wow. Well, I'll ask him tomorrow. I'm sure I'm going to see him tomorrow. I'll ask him tomorrow and then see what he has to say about that. Hello, James. James says tonalization studies help to keep the same embouchure setting throughout my entire range. That's another one of the benefits, right? There is not enough time to reset for the higher notes or lower notes. This has helped my flexibility a lot. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I have a list somewhere um, of a bunch of the benefits to the tonalization studies. And, you know, like I was saying earlier, there's so many benefits that I wasn't aware of when I first made the exercises up. To me, when I wrote those exercises, the objective was not to come up with something better than what everybody else was doing. That wasn't the objective. I don't think like that. That's not how I meant to do it. The objective was to save time. When I first put those exercises together, it was to save time. I wanted more. I wanted to get more done in less time. That was the only objective. So I took all the exercises I was doing up to that point in my life, and then I had some other things I was looking at that weren't written for trumpet. For example, the original version of the exercises was greatly influenced by a book by, and I'm not never sure if I'm saying his name correctly, Sheshvik. Let me see. A violin book. No, that's not right. So this book. Yeah, I can't remember the guy's how to spell his name. It's not coming up. But I think I'm getting close. Sheshvik. was the guy's name. And basically, the exercises are supposed to be done the same exercise, but in different key signatures every time. And I discovered that I could do that and save literally thousands of pages of printed music by having the single exercises. Now, this is from the Daily Routines book and the Trumpet Chops and the Chops Express. You'll notice that those exercises don't have the key signature because we use the same exercise in that book. Now, I later wrote it all out and published tonalization study books, but originally it wasn't written like that. It was all in the Daily Routines book and books like that. And yes, very heavily influenced by Sheshvik. So um, so to me, that was an important part, was just like getting the most benefit out of it in the least amount of time. And I think that happened, but there's now a whole bunch of benefits that I hadn't anticipated. And this thing, what James is saying, is one of those, because you're going up to the top range, down to your lowest range, and you can't reset. So it forces you, and you're doing that 20 times. If you do the whole set, you're doing 20 of those. And if you're doing it in the context of the routine book, then you're doing that also with the long tones. You're doing it also with the lip slurs. And yeah, it all comes together very nicely as far as the chops goes. Any other questions? This has become a tonalization study episode. Seppo says thank you. You're welcome. I know I sent you an email about this, but I enjoyed your videos and your photos. And it reminded me of Raimo, because Raimo sends me videos of some of the folk music, Finnish folk music, and there was an element of what I saw with your videos that reminded me of the folk music. Not musically speaking, but just, I don't know, more like the attitude. I love folk music of all nationalities, and it's for me, and I hope people pick up on this without me having to actually articulate it, right? For me, the most important thing is sincerity and honesty. So I want to hear people in their most natural setting. I don't want people, I'm not impressed by people acting like movie stars or rock stars or anything like that. And so that's how I felt, is that this was a natural, looking at these videos, that this was sincere, sincere. So yeah, I appreciated that. Seppo says, I really appreciate you watched the videos. Um, yeah, it's my pleasure. All right. What else? What other questions do we have? I've got a gig tomorrow. I think I've done this gig every year, I think, for the last um, 4 or 5 years at least, maybe longer. And they call it the consulate ball, where all of the embassies in Houston, they come to this ball and have a party. It's like an embassy party, but from all the embassies in Houston. And they celebrate a different country every year. I don't know what they'll celebrate this year. Um, but yeah, that's the consulate ball. Anything? Any other questions? I meant to say anyway. Anyway, any more questions? Raimo says, "Bye, Eddie. I have more finished music for you." Oh, that's great. I look forward to hearing it. All right. Well, maybe we'll close a little earlier unless someone has a question. Always great to hang out with you guys. I am a little tired today. All right. Well, I guess we'll close it down. Thanks for hanging out. God bless you guys. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a great weekend. Bye, Jeffrey. Bye, all of you. Nice to see you. Okay. Seppo says we'll do a question next time. Okay. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great week. Bye.